Alright, I wanted to place a very honest and innocently um, phrased or proposed question to all of the atheists on YouTube. Because there's a lot of discussion about atheism, science, religion, evolution, topics that really, these are the issues that when people who want to know the truth in our culture today, this is where they go to try to figure it out. They look to the science of evolution. Some people look to the Bible. Some people look to atheism and rationality. But whatever it is, this is the clash of people searching for the truth. And so it's a very important discussion. And usually I don't fall into any specific side of these debates. Like, I don't think that there really is a true debate between science and religion. Like, evolution and creationism, for me, I'm not on the side of evolutionary theory, and I'm not on the side of creationism either. Because evolutionary theory is itself, if that's all that a person requires as their truth of why the universe is the way it is, and why they are here today, and those big questions, if they only require evolution by natural selection for that, their belief that that theory is the explanation for everything is just as much a leap of faith as a Christian believing that God molded us out of clay. There's the same gap between the data that we have and the conclusions that we're drawing from that data. So I usually don't pick a side. I think they both have elements of truth in them, and most of the populist people that stand for each side and that argue and against one another in the public arena and that are popular, and that, like Richard Dawkins and there's lots of different creationists that are really only popular in those little Kansas towns. They don't usually see their books on the front desk at Barnes & Noble or Borders or anything. So those guys are for the down-home, deep South and Midwestern Christians that aren't exposed to the type of global, rational, non-ethnocentric debates that go on outside of those small circles. And I think the internet is helping with that. And the internet is drawing these people together, and you can see the debate happening. And you can see some people, I think at least, educating themselves and understanding these important issues a lot better. So anyways, yeah, I had a question for atheists. I'm sorry I made you sit through all that before I asked the question. And the question is basically, well, what is atheism? Is atheism necessarily, well, obviously it's necessarily a disbelief in the Christian God. Atheism, in other words, the theological interpretations of what God is like and what the existence of God means and how we should behave because that is the case and so forth. All of these theological Christian interpretations of the ultimate or of God are what atheists disagree with. And if that is all an atheist disagrees with, then I am an atheist. But if an atheist also means that we think that you would think rationality and science and purely logical deduction and a positivistic approach to, like, we can empirically know the truth, we don't need to invent anything. If you think if that's your ultimate answer, and that's what atheism requires, I'm not an atheist. Because I've seen spiritual atheists that realize there's a mystery inherent to life and that we can never know everything there is to know rationally. So in other words, we're always subject to this greater power Now, Christian theologians will tell you exactly what that greater power is and exactly what the greater power wants you to do. A spiritual person wouldn't do that, and that's the difference. But they still admit that there is this greater force that exists, um, and it's it's the kind of a thing that isn't separate from us. In other words, whatever the universe is at that ultimate level, we are an intricate expression of that. We're intricately like interwoven with it, and are an expression of its amazing capabilities and its astounding creativity and its beauty. Like, we're still experiencing that now. We are the Big Bang. We are the first chemical reaction to grow a membrane around itself and become alive. We are the first ape to have a thought. We're still a part of all that stuff that has happened in our evolution. Because I think a lot of the atheists that want to use specifically evolution by natural selection to explain everything are forgetting that this notion of evolution, that the universe grows in complexity over time, is a lot more. It has a lot more context than just biology. Because if you think you are just a biological organism, you're not really seeing the big picture. Because the big picture is biological organisms are matter, right? Matter came before life evolved on this planet. There was just a big ball of dirt and chemicals and some water, add a little sunlight, and organisms form out of the clay, basically, right? So we're still part of the earth. And the earth itself, all this matter, is basically light. Because back at the beginning of the Big Bang, before any actual atoms could form, before there could even be gas, there was just this energy of pure light that was just expanding from the original event horizon of creation. So we're not at all separate from any of that. And to say that all occurred because of natural selection, survival of the fittest. What if it's really survival of the most creative, or survival of whatever enjoys what it's doing the most? Survival of the most cooperative, maybe. The most willing parts to work together to create this larger whole is what survived in the universe. The first particles that started to cool off and form from this original explosion of light, the ones that didn't want to work with any of the other ones around them, and didn't want to form any bonds or cause any cool little reactions to happen, the ones that didn't want to pay attention to gravity, those went extinct, right? So they were looking out for themselves, and yet natural selection said, well, you looked out for yourself into extinction. So instead of thinking that your ego is all that you have, I don't think being atheist requires that you think that your ego is all that you are. And maybe most of the atheists on YouTube will agree with that. But yeah, please, anyone who has anything to say about this, or who would like to try to answer this question, I'd be delighted to hear your response. So thanks for listening.